welcome to the Contrary, a weekly discussion of news and social trends from diverse perspectives. Up first, women, work, and COVID. Between August and September, more than 850,000 women left the workforce, compared with just more than 200,000 men. And a recent study found the pandemic has 1 in 4 women considering leaving the workforce or downshifting a career. Joining me now is former Maryland Congresswoman Donna Edwards, Linda Chavez, chair of the Center for Equal Opportunity, former judge and federal prosecutor Debra Carnahan, and Ann Stone, co-founder of Women for Trump. Okay, let's start with you, Donna Edwards, former Democratic Congresswoman from Maryland. Why are women dropping out? And I'm sure since it's women, 4 times as many women as men, that also means 4 times, many of those people, a large percentage of those people are women of color. Why is this happening?
Well, I think in this COVID environment, the impact for women is huge. I mean, first of all, we know that even if men in a household do a lot of stuff, they don't do as much as women do in terms of being caregivers. And now women are working at home, they're caregivers at home, they're teaching their children at home. It's a huge load for them. And so it's actually not surprising to me that some of them are saying, you know what? I got to ditch one of these things, and they can't ditch their children and they can't ditch their caregiving. And so they're making decisions to ditch their jobs. And unfortunately, they are some of the most senior level women, and it potentially erases the gains that women have made over, this period of time. And it means that we're starting from scratch again to build the kind of workforce that's going to end up in the boardrooms and at the senior leadership levels.
Ann Stone, your thoughts?
Well, I totally agree with everything Donna just said, but it is part and parcel of what has happened during this whole adventure. Being at home and being with your children and being with your family, they're rethinking priorities. And I think you'll see this will change around. Give them a few more months. As my sisters used to say, got to the point where you really wanted to see people that were over 3 feet tall. So at some point it may in fact turn around. But I think another thing you're going to see coming out of this is more home-based businesses, which women excel at. And I think you will see that. But I think there's going to be a real transformation overall in the economy with more people working from home.
Linda?
Well, I think that this is probably not going to be an equal opportunity problem. I think that if you are a high-income woman, particularly if it's a 2-parent household, you may have the choice to stay home. And because there are now, such concerns about what to do about the kids, whether it's safe to send them back to school. But for low-income women, for, the people who clean buildings or deliver the groceries or do the
waitresses
or the waitresses, right? They may very well not have a choice. And so what that's going to mean is that they may be going back into the workforce, but their kids are going to be home alone. And that is not going to be good for anybody.
Does that, Debra Carnahan, speak to the need for another aid package for the COVID economy?
We definitely, Bonnie, need another aid pack. We need an aid package. We're coming into the winter. It's flu season on top of the virus season. I heard what Ann said. I don't think it's going to be a choice of, well, let's just kind of, and Ann, if I'm, paraphrasing wrong, I apologize. But
I'll let you know.
I'm sure you will. But I think what I heard you say was, well, they'll look at this and then maybe they'll prioritize, but it'll be like 3 months. This is necessity. This is necessity, man. This isn't choice. This is what you have to do. And women are looking at, my family has always been a priority, but I also do the majority of the housework. I also am a major breadwinner. I also am a person that, has been co-equal at times with my partner, whether that be a male or female, and bringing in money. And something's got to give here. Something's got to give. And what we're seeing is women are once again doing the giving. And that's a hard thing, because let's remember how many women are single mothers. And single mothers statistically are in the lower poverty level in this country.
So,
But they're not the ones.
doesn't that speak to Trump, who's widely lost support in the polls, not just national polls, but battleground state polls, important battleground state polls now show Biden ahead, and they're even in Ohio as of this taping, and which was, supposed to go Republican. And what doesn't that tell President Trump he ought to get on with another package?
What happened was they hit a brick wall. Pelosi wouldn't move off of 2.2 trillion. A lot of that money that was between where the Republicans were and they were was to go to New York and California. He did not believe, and I agree, that we should be paying for their bills of things they incurred before COVID. So bottom line, they weren't going to move off of it. So he said, fine, we got to walk away because she won't move. Now he comes back and he said, listen, if you want to give me a standalone, something where money goes directly to people or goes directly to businesses, small business, send it my way, I'll sign it. Because the larger bill, they could not get past that last was 600 billion, I think it was. And that was mainly bailouts for California, New York, and a couple of other states. And I can't blame Trump for saying he's protecting taxpayers like me. I don't live in a state that has that kind of deficit pre-COVID. So therefore, I appreciate the fact he was protecting my interests.
Well,
Okay,
I'm going to disagree here with Ann, and I'm going to do it as a Republican.
Let Donna talk. Wait,
Let me just say, first of all, the House passed a bill that was the HEROES Act, which has been sitting over in the Senate.
$4 trillion.
Since May. It was. Let me finish, Ann. And so it was $4 trillion.
Yeah.
Democrats actually came down $1 trillion. Republicans have refused to come up $1 trillion to meet in the middle. And all this package did, first of all, it gave relief to individual Americans who are unemployed. It made sure that people had protections for their jobs, really, centering the protection plan so that small businesses could get relief. And on top of that, it said, you know what, we realize that there are states out there who their economies have really suffered, and we need to make sure that we give them a bridge over into recovery. I think this is entirely reasonable. And what happened was that the president sent out some ridiculous tweet without consulting anyone. He realized that it tanked the market, and then he came back and said, "Oh, do a little bit of a relief bill." Well, the Americans need a big relief bill, and the fact is, on November 1st, we are going to see record numbers of not just furloughs. We're going to see record numbers of layoffs in the airline industry, in the hotel industry, and it is going to hit this country like we've never seen before. Congress needs to do a relief package.
Can I just weigh in here, because I think, as a conservative and as a Republican, what Ann is saying is simply wrong. The reason that Donald Trump doesn't want money to go to California and New York is that he's a vindictive man. California and New York pay more than their fair share of federal taxes. The money that goes into the federal treasury from those states is redistributed to some of the red states that he favors. This is all about politics, and it's about Donald Trump's vindictiveness. Now, would I like to see a slightly more targeted kind of bailout? Yes. But, the head of the Federal Reserve this week said that if we don't get a stimulus bill, and a big stimulus bill, this economy is going to be suffering. It's not just going to be short term. This is going to be long-term suffering. So I think that Donald Trump is playing games. I think he's being petty, and he is not putting the interests of the American people first.
Well, now that we're clear, wait. Now that we're clear that it's
and I want to
3-on-1.
The next question. I want to move to the next question. We already know that Donald Trump sees America as red America versus blue America. He's talked about it himself. He really doesn't seem to care for the blue states or what problems they have, and he only cares for red states because those people vote for him. He said as much. I'm not making this up. So wouldn't you think that he would want, particularly since the polls are now showing that he's losing, his whole craziness during his hospital visit and spreading COVID to Secret Service agents and blah, blah, and all the people who've turned up positive since that Rose Garden event, wouldn't it make sense for him politically to support a bailout now, because he's losing mainly women, white women, and suburbanites? That's why they're neck and neck with Biden in Ohio, for example, and ahead.
Okay.
Biden's
Now, if I can
ahead in
answer,
Pennsylvania.
if I can answer, because we're now 3-on-1 here and have the time. He's not against all blue states. There's some blue states that are mismanaged, some that aren't. He gets along fine with New Jersey, where they have to have a balanced budget. He gets along fine with, other governors in other of the blue states. He has a problem with California, New York, and I think Illinois, because they really have mismanaged their state governments. And he doesn't want to be responsible for bailing them out. He's willing to give them money towards their COVID debt that was incurred, but not for the mismanagement. He doesn't want to be bailing out their pension mismanagement and all that. And I can't blame him. And again, I feel he's protecting us when he does that.
We are in a national emergency. This is not a normal time economically. And a lot of the voters are turning against President Trump because of his mishandling of this situation. Why doesn't he give in and not worry about the details? Just get funding to people whose unemployment has ended. Get funding to renters who are about to be kicked out of their homes. Get funding to small businesses so they can create jobs again.
One of the big reasons is he wouldn't have had the support in the Senate to pass the bigger bill on the Republican side.
Debra.
Number two, if it was such an easy political give and this was the be all to end all to solve his political problems, then you must be amazed that he's not doing it. He's not doing it because he's not doing it out of principle.
Well, first of all, because Anne and I was listening, I don't think that anybody thinks that this president doesn't act out of vindictiveness. He pretty much has shown us all he does act out of vindictiveness. California also is very much a red/blue state, but the president looks at it as a blue state. And he's made it very, very clear in his aid. If you're blue, I'm not going to help you. If you're red and you're for me, I'm going to help you. And I feel for you that you're trying to defend him, that that's not the case, but it is the case. And he says that.
It isn't the case.
All right, Linda.
It isn't the case.
Linda.
Well, look, as I said, as someone who is a conservative and who doesn't like always throwing money at problems, but this is a very special situation. I mean, I agree that, they can pack these bills with lots of things that are not necessarily related to COVID, that may, in fact, be somebody's favorite, program. But if, in fact, they are able to target the bill in such a way that it deals with the immediate need, which is, first of all, getting money into the hands of individuals, trying to get more money into the hands of people whose jobs have not come back. It isn't that they don't want to work. It is that their jobs are not coming back. And finally, that we've got a country to run. And if we don't do this, we are going to face, I think, a really, really bleak future in 2021. And regardless of who is president, we're going to be dealing with this for a long time.
Nobody is stopping this bill but Nancy Pelosi. They're only $600 billion apart. She could easily go down to the $1.6 trillion and get it done now and then fight the other battles later. She is the one. She doesn't want Trump to have this before the election. That's why she won't give in.
That is just such rubbish.
Let's now move on to the vice presidential debate. Were there, looking ahead, who, if either one of the debaters, Vice President Pence or Senator Kamala Harris, who's the VP running mate of Joe Biden, who won more voters over?
Well, Bonnie, if I can just say this, that's what a presidential debate should look like. what we saw between the two vice presidential candidates. You know, you can say, I think this person won, I think that person won, but I was so relieved to see civility. I do think that the vice president interrupted the senator more often than she interrupted him. What we've talked about before on the show is, and it's proven, men interrupt women more. However, having said that, it was such a relief to watch them both be civil. And I really think the American people got to hear different points of view and not be so confused and yelling and screaming.
Donna, who won more votes for their ticket?
Well, first of all, I never really think that a vice presidential debate wins votes. I think it's an opportunity for both of the candidates to really show themselves to America and show what kind of partner they will be to their running mate. And I think both, did that. I think in my network of friends, people were really turned off by the interrupting, by the talking over time. And they felt an unfairness with that, especially my women friends. And I actually tweeted out that it reminded me of every boardroom, every staff meeting, every meeting that I've ever been in. And it was kind of offensive. I also think that Kamala Harris had a way of, she did try to continue to talk to the camera and speak directly to voters. I think Vice President Pence stayed on the message of this administration, but I was hard pressed for him to explain away the abject failure of the administration and of him and the president in terms of the number one thing that's on people's minds, and that's the coronavirus.
The one thing that I think that Pence did brilliantly was not answer questions. He avoided answering question after question. You'd throw a question at him and he would deflect and simply get across the talking points that he wanted to get across. Watching the two of them, I looked at Senator Harris and I thought, gee, she seems like, my best girlfriend who's talking to me. She's concerned about me. She's wants to, persuade me of her point of view. Listening to him, I felt I was in a used car sales lot, and I had this dyspeptic salesman who was trying to sell me a clunker. And whenever I asked questions about things like the mileage or whether or not, the transmission had been replaced, he would answer some totally irrelevant questions. So, in terms of debating style, I think he is a good debater. There is certainly a school of thought that says that you ought to do what he did when you don't have the facts on your side. On the other hand, if you're trying to win over people who don't already agree with you, I don't think he did a very good job. And I think she came across as really likable. And that, I think, I hate to say it, but all of us on this panel know it's true. Likability really matters in politics, and it especially matters for women. And
now
is very likable.
And now for a contrary view, again, 3-1. First of all, we timed who got how much time, and going into the closing remarks, Harris had almost 8 minutes more than Pence did of talking time. So much for interrupting. She also was the first to interrupt of the evening, but that's beside the point. She had more airtime than he did. And it was funny because I think Susan Page thought he had, but no, when you time it. Secondly, I'm a student of debate. I got straight A's in debates in high school and college. I was a state debate champion, etc. So from a technical standpoint, he kicked her butt big time, nailed her so many times. And the fact checking that is coming out and will be coming out over the next week will show almost everything the woman said was a lie. I mean, it was unbelievable how she misrepresented her own position and the position of Trump. Again, I'll be borne out by what the fact checkers will tell you. And Pence was able to answer several of them right on the spot, but she repeated, debunked canards about Trump and debunked information. One of the most effective things Pence did, I thought, on COVID was to draw a comparison to what Obama-Biden did on H1N1. In fact, 7 million have been infected with COVID, almost 70 million. It was 68 million, I think it was, were infected with H1N1. Because it wasn't as lethal, not as many died. But he made the point, which I was hoping he'd make, and that is if it had been the same amount of lethal, there'd be over 2 million dead right now because of how badly they mishandled H1N1. And even Ron Klein, who was Biden's chief of staff, who's now missing in action, can't find him anywhere, said they did everything wrong and it was just dumb luck that more people didn't die when they were handling a pandemic. So I thought Pence, that was one of the best points he made all night.
Let's talk about the Amy Coney Barrett nomination to the Supreme Court. The hearings start on Monday, and he made it seem, which is something that the religious right does all the time. He made it seem like if she's questioned about precisely what her religious views are, and she belongs, she's in the leadership of a very bizarre sect of Catholicism that they speak in tongues to each other, and they all believe that men are vastly superior to women, and she voluntarily subjugates herself to that doctrine, that would somehow be persecuting her as a Christian. Whereas I see it as, you need to know for a Supreme Court nominee how much they're going to use their religious beliefs to invade state territory and put their religious beliefs into law and make people who aren't members of Catholic sects abide the laws of those sects.
But Bonnie, let me come to Amy Coney Barrett's defense here. And I actually support her nomination. And as you may be surprised, I just signed a letter.
I am shocked.
I am, in favor of generally conservative judges. And Bonnie, it was on your show when Merrick Garland's nomination came up that I said that Merrick Garland deserved a vote. I don't happen to believe that. I'm being very consistent. I thought he should have gotten a vote. I think Amy Coney Barrett deserves a vote. I think the real question isn't the nature of her religious beliefs. There's only one question, really. And that question is, do your religious beliefs, are they going to affect the way you judge? And that's the issue. And if she can dispel that, then I think that ought to be the end of it. I don't think we need to
But she can't dispel it.
It's easy to say to somebody, would you let your religious beliefs interfere in your judicial decisions? And everybody's going to go, oh, I would never do that. I'm going to follow the rule of law. That's what I'm going to do. That's an easy answer. And everybody's going to say that. That's not what it is at issue here.
Well, as Ruth Bader Ginsburg said, when a president's elected for 4 years, his constitutional duty is to fill the slot. Would she have been my first choice? No. And Bonnie, she wouldn't have been my first choice. But do I think, we know how she's going to be and whether or not her religion is going to be dominant in her judicial rulings? I don't know that I've seen enough evidence to say that is the case. She even talked about Roe being settled law. I don't, but that she'd be open to restrictions. We'll see if that is the case. I think she will be confirmed, and there is no religious test for a justice on the Supreme Court.
Yeah, I don't think we can have this discussion without always prefacing it by saying that Merrick Garland didn't just deserve a hearing; he deserved a vote by his nominating president, and especially if that is the standard that's being used now. That said, I think it's entirely appropriate for the Judiciary Committee to fully explore the things that inform a judge's decision. And if to the extent that her religion informs the way that she thinks about the world and thinks about case law, is really important to explore, not just on the surface, but to dig deeply. And so I am looking forward to that line of questioning because she's going to be with us for a lifetime. And so I don't think that we should just, I think it's easy to say, let's just, screen out any questioning of her and her religion as though somehow that is territory that can't be explored because it would be sort of inappropriate to challenge her religious beliefs. This is not about challenging her personal beliefs. It's about challenging the way that she thinks about the world and through the lens of religion and how that will impact the rest of us in our public life.
Thank you all. And please, in between shows, please join us online on our website, pbs.org/tothecontrary. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram. And whether you agree or think to the contrary, see you next time.
Funding for To the Contrary provided by the E. Rhodes and Leona B. Carpenter Foundation, the Colcom Foundation, and the Charles A. Freoff Foundation. For a transcript or to see an online version of this episode of To the Contrary, please visit our PBS website at pbs.org/To the Contrary.
Be more. PBS.